Hi, geometry students. Make sure you have your workbook out. We are going through lesson 6. We're talking perimeter and area, which sounds like it's going to be basic, but there's so many ways that this can get complicated, so you're going to want to make sure you're following along. It is in your workbook because these are guided notes, and you should be on page 17. So on page 17 in your workbook, there's just a summary, first of all, of what your formulas are. Area of a rectangle we've talked about already in this class, but it's base times height, where the base and the height, as all bases and heights do, intersect at a right angle. Wow, that's poorly traced. There we go. That's right, yeah. So we got a right angle. Same idea for a square, because it's just also base times height. We can go ahead and say S times S, because it's the side length and they're the same thing. And anything times itself is S squared. So a lot of times it'll be really helpful to use S squared for the area of a square. For parallelogram, if you could picture, actually I can do it. If I could take this triangle and cut it out and shift it over here, maybe. Oh, it won't let me line it up nice, but pretend like it's not here anymore. It's gonna look exactly like this, which means it's technically like a rearranged rectangle. And I'm just gonna keep using the formula area equals base times height. Anytime you use the letter B and the letter H, you have to make sure those things make a right angle. Main thing people miss with area is they don't look for right angles. Same thing for a triangle. The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, because it's like half of a parallelogram. So your base and your height have to make a right angle. They have to be the legs of a right triangle, or just some part that makes a right angle. If you skip that step, you're going to miss it a lot of times. Circles, you don't have to worry about that, because there are no right angles, there's no side lengths. The area of a circle is pi times r squared, where r is the radius. The circumference of a circle is 2 times pi r, or a lot of times some teachers will use pi times the diameter. We're not going to focus on the circles today. Honestly, we're not even going to get very far, because I just want to get started on this after your quiz today. So I just want to basically remind you the difference between perimeter and area. The perimeter is the distance around a shape, distance around a figure. So it's staying on the outside of the shape, which is an example of when perimeter would be used. Mine is always fencing. Like if you are about to put up a fence out on a farm or in your yard, you're going to need to calculate the perimeter, the distance around whatever shape yard you have. However, area is not around the outside. It's the two-dimensional space an object takes up. So I'm just going to put space a shape takes up. Excuse me. So if you are going to lay down some type of flooring, like you are going to go buy some tile, you'd need to know the area of your floor, so you'd know how many tiles you're going to need to buy. We will do an example later of tiling, because it's a very real-life application of doing perimeter or area. You would also need to know perimeter if you were going to put a border around a picture or around like a fancy wall or something. I'll just put a picture, kind of like framing. If you needed to know how much wood you needed to buy to make a frame, you'd be finding perimeter. Whereas if you were trying to paint a wall, paint is sold by the square foot, so you'd need to calculate your square footage, the area of your wall, to know, is it realistic to buy however many cans of paint you have. And every year I love telling the story. We used to have a math teacher who worked at our school who used to work at Home Depot, and he loved telling the story about how one day this lady came in and said, okay, I need to buy this many gallons of paint, and it was like in the hundreds. And she wasn't like some professional like home painter. She's just some lady who's buying this much cans of paint. And he's like, are you sure about that? Like, can we check? And she's like, no, I know that's how much I need. And so she gave him like the units, the dimensions of her house. He calculated it and just told her the right amount and said, if you end up needing more, because she was still convinced she needed hundreds of cans of paint. He's like, just come back if you need more. You're not going to buy that much now. And then he was looking at the stuff later after she left and realized that she calculated the volume of her house and not the area of the walls, which means instead of buying enough paint to just paint her walls, she had it in her head that she had to buy enough paint, essentially to pour paint and fill it up so as if she would be swimming her entire house in paint. So learn perimeter and area and volume so you at least don't embarrass yourself at Home Depot and have a story for our Home Depot to tell for the rest of their life. That has nothing to do with number 3, but still, it's a good story. If I want the perimeter of a square, oh no, I know the perimeter of the square. It's 44x inches. So picture a square. That's more of a rectangle, but there we go. So remember, squares are supposed to have all right angles. Your picture might not look like it, and that's okay. It's supposed to have all sides the same length. Again, if your picture doesn't look like it, not a big deal. But the sides being the same length, so if I call this S, then this is S, then this is S, then this is S. It means that S plus S plus S plus S is 44x inches, because that's what perimeter is, because the perimeter is 44x. Well, I just said 4 of that exact same number gave me 44x. So if I want to know the side first of the square, which is what I need for area, I'm going to divide by 4. So my side length is 11x. So it's weird that we have an x hanging on in here. It doesn't really matter. Like, I want to know the side. This is all we can find out for the side. So if I want to know the area, well, area is the side length squared. I need to take 11x times itself. So if you remember your algebra rules really well, your exponent rules, knock yourself out, use them. I recommend writing it twice so you don't screw it up. 11 times 11 is 121. Anything times itself is that thing squared. So we get 121x squared square inches for our area. So weird problem because of x, but something we can do. Last one I'm going to put in this video is number 4. Now I'm telling you the area of the square. So the area is 48 square feet, which means S squared is 48 square feet. Because I already know the area is something times itself. Now, here's the real reason that I don't like relying only on base times height. I like this formula better because you can't solve it if it's base and height. But if you know that those are the same thing, S times S, S squared, you can solve for S, the side length, because we can take the opposite of squaring. So I'm going to find S, and it doesn't tell me to round, and since this is geometry class, I'm not going to. I'm going to break it apart. I know that 48 is 4 times 12, which gets me a pair of 2's. 12 is 2 times 6, and 6 is 2 times 3. So instead of the square root of 48, I'm going to write it as the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Pairs make perfect squares. This is like saying, oh, I need the square root of 4. I know the square root of 4 is 2. I have another square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2. And I don't know the square root of 3, so I'm just going to leave it in there. The side length of my square is 4 root 3. But I don't want the side length. The directions ask for the perimeter. So remember, squares have 4 sides that are all the same length. So I'm going to take 4 root 3 plus 4 root 3 plus 4 root 3 plus 4 root 3. And we talked about when we were adding radicals, this would be like I have 4 kittens plus 4 more kittens plus 4 more kittens and 4 more kittens. So besides happiness, I also have 16 of those root 3's, 16 of those kittens. That's my perimeter, since I didn't ask you to round. So we're going to do more in class, but I wanted to kind of get started on this. I wanted you to get started on this so that we could kind of jump into some of these others doing together in class too. So hopefully you don't have questions, but if you do,